This is your Sound Off Extra review for WWE Money in the Bank 2018 from Chicago, Illinois, here on the official YouTube channel for the Solomonster Sounds Off podcast, which you can listen to each and every Sunday on thesolomonster.com, Spotify, iTunes, or Stitcher Radio. Show ended a little while ago, and overall thoughts, coming off another excellent NXT TakeOver show. They had some very big shoes to fill here, and they could not do it. And in their defense, it is very difficult to top most of those TakeOver shows. Those are usually some of the best shows all year. That being said, this show had two worthy ladder matches. They were very far from the best Money in the Bank matches I've ever seen. But I think between the women's version, the men's version, the Nia Jax Ronda Rousey match exceeding expectations, at least my expectations. I won't speak for all of you. But that match was a hell of a lot better than I expected it to be. And a pretty damn good Intercontinental title match, even with the lame finish. And I guess I kind of get why they did it. It seems to me that that's going to continue, and so it's a way to keep the program going between Rollins and Elias. Still, I thought it was sort of a lame way for the match to end. But given all those matches, I cannot give this show a thumbs down. I would have to give this show what I would call an unenthusiastic thumbs up. I did not come out of this show overly enthusiastic about anything. I am not overly excited about anything in particular. But I can't give the show a thumbs down. I think it's a thumbs up show. And so that's... I know that's one man's opinion. There's a lot of very varied opinion on the pay-per-view, judging from my timeline. I had thought there was a Raw Tag Team title match with Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt defending against the B Team. It never took place, and I guess they never did officially announce it. For some reason, I thought that it was announced, or on Raw that they had sort of dropped mentions that, the winner of that Battle Royal, that Axel and Dallas won, would be getting a Tag Team Championship match at Money in the Bank. I guess it was never formally announced, either that or they just forgot about it because it did not take place. So perhaps they're holding it off for Extreme Rules. Let's run through this card real quick here. The kickoff match was the Bludgeon Brothers defending the Smackdown Tag Team titles against the Good Brothers, Anderson and Gallows. Pretty basic match. I wasn't really expecting much out of this going into the show. Anderson and Gallows have gotten more television time of late, specifically just to give the Bludgeon Brothers someone to beat. They were sort of handpicked to be the next team to put them over. I don't expect that that's going to continue. I don't expect to really see them doing much of anything on TV. And the match was very short. They didn't give them a lot of time. It was sort of, hey, get out there, do your spots, and get the hell out of there. They went for the Magic Killer. Rowan broke it up. Bludgeon Brothers hit their double-team power bomb on Luke Gallows, and, that's fairly impressive. Luke Gallows is no small man. Hit the power bomb, got the pin, and not a whole lot to say about this. Not a whole lot good to say about this. Pay-per-view opened with Daniel Bryan against Big Cass. Speaking of not good, if you remember Backlash, they had a very bad match. By Daniel Bryan singles match standards, they had an awful match. And so this was going to be a big test for Cass to see, how he does here in the rematch. And I definitely thought it was better than their Backlash match. So this was an improvement because that match was not very good. But poor Cass, they're trying to do something with him and taps out cleanly in the first match. So I thought, well, even maybe it could be a DQ or something. But I figure, all right, Cass will get a win here, and they'll do a rubber match maybe at the next pay-per-view or on TV or something like that. Didn't even get that. Did not even get that. Daniel Bryan wins with a flying knee and a heel hook. Yet another tap out, second consecutive tap out by Big Cass, thus proving that the big man is not always as good as the small man. Maybe they're trying to send a message to all the kids out there. I don't know. Cass did break out the old Lex Luger torture rack 2 different times here in this match. He was beating down Bryan. Bryan fought back, and as I said, got the tap out. Now, where Big Cass goes from here is kind of an interesting question, because this is now the second time Not only that he has lost, but he has lost in very convincing submission fashion to the smaller man. I did not have a lot of interest in seeing their first match. I had less interest in seeing the rematch. I have no interest in seeing a third match. I have no need. What is the need to even see a third match now that it's been very well established that Daniel Bryan has soundly defeated this man on 2 different occasions. So my hope is that I don't want to say the Cass experiment is over. They should give up on him, cut him. I'm not saying that, but Daniel Bryan deserves better than this. Daniel Bryan, I think, needs to be in a higher profile feud heading into SummerSlam. I don't really care much whatever they do to Cass, whatever they do with him. But this Daniel Bryan thing, he just has to move on. Speaking of moving on, great segue. Sami Zayn, one-on-one with Bobby Lashley. This feud has been horrendous. They've given these two guys absolutely nothing to work with now. For weeks on television, we have been subjected to garbage week after week after week. And I look at this and I say to myself, Sami Zayn deserves so much better than this. Kevin Owens has lucked out in that, he's been involved with he's been involved with Strowman and a lot of the key players in the Money in the Bank match because he was able to secure a spot in the main event. Sami Zayn was not so lucky. He's now off doing his own thing. And so they paired him off with Bobby Lashley. And he and Lashley both, I feel they've done the best they could do. And Zayn in particular. Sami Zayn did the best he could possibly do with what they gave him. But at the end of the day, it's like being given a toothbrush to try to pick a lock. You know what I mean? He's not MacGyver. The man can only do so much. And this match here was nearly a total squash. 3 delayed vertical suplexes by Lashley was all he needed. Finish off Sami Zayn in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3. If only this feud had been as short as this match, we would have been spared a lot of pain. But they had the ability to come out here at least and have a really good match. They didn't go in that direction. This was part of the story being that Sami Zayn has been kneeling Lashley and offending Lashley, saying, did he even serve in the military? And this was Lashley's opportunity to come out here and shut Sami Zayn up. This wasn't about having a good match. It was about hopefully paying off and blowing off a feud. One can only hope. This is the blow-off to this feud. Yet another match where, like Bryan and Cass, I don't need to see the next chapter. I've seen the one chapter. If this were a book, I'd return it to the library and I'd pick another book. But this was not good. Seth Rollins and Elias for the Intercontinental Championship. Before the match, Elias doing his thing, calling the fans scumbags, which led to the crowd here in Chicago chanting, "We are scumbags." Well, at least they're honest. Acceptance is the first step to healing. This was the best Elias match I have seen since he was called up to the main roster. In fact, this was the best Elias match I've seen even going back to his NXT days. I don't know that I've ever seen him in a singles match as good as this one. Rollins tweaked, I put that in air quotes, tweaked his left knee during the match. That gave Elias the chance to focus on it for a while. Rollins hit the superplex into a Falcon Arrow for a near fall. Elias then sidestepped a tope from Rollins, threw him into the barricade. He was going nuts here. Elias, he was keeping up the pace, threw him face first into the post, picked him up, threw him into the steps, picked him up, threw him into the ring, hit the Randy Savage elbow drop off the top rope for a near fall. Crowd was electric for this. Started a "This is awesome" chant. Rollins later went for a buckle bomb, but his knee buckled. Elias went for drift away. Rollins got a small package for a near fall. Roll up by Elias. Gets reversed by Rollins. Rollins grabbed a handful of pants. He grabbed the belt that Elias was wearing and pulled him backwards and scored the surprise pin to retain the IC title. I don't think anybody was expecting that to be the finish. I certainly wasn't expecting that to be the finish, but they popped for it when Rollins won because people love Seth Rollins. What a shock. And like I said, the best singles match I've seen of Elias's career to date. I would not rank this above the match that Rollins had with Miz, which was one of the only shining spots on Backlash. But this was still a damn good match. We had the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Sasha Banks, Natalya, Ember Moon, Alexa Bliss, Naomi, Lana, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch. Excellent match. Crowd seemed to be mostly into Becky and Lana. Can't say I blame them. Natalya, not so much, especially late in the match. There was a moment where it looked like she might win, and people were booing. They were actively booing. They did not want to see her win this match. But these women just killed each other early on with ladder shots. They each had their own, moment to shine here in this match. But they were killing each other, and Sasha Banks, took probably more abuse than anybody else. She took some crazy abuse during this match to her back, and I know she had back problems legitimately for a while, so that was kind of cringy in that every time she took a bump on her back, I kind of winced. She took a springboard splash early on from Ember Moon and landed back first on the ladder that was laying in the ring. Later on, Natty powerbombed her into the ladder. Sasha, though, pulled off a pretty cool spot. Double knees in the corner on the ladder. Lana and Ember were kind of stacked on the ladder in the corner, hit the double knees, so that was pretty cool. Lana, let me talk about Lana here, because this was the best Lana has ever looked in a match. And we haven't seen Lana in a lot of matches. I mean, a lot of matches at all, let alone a big pay-per-view match like this. And it's obvious that she's been training and working and trying to improve. She's not exactly, Judy Grable or any one of these legendary female wrestlers, but she's made improvements. She is not out there embarrassing herself. She, fit right in there. And it was her first time, I think, in a big match like this, and she did not look out of place. And also, she was pretty over. So, what they're doing, I know some people were very upset. Oh, they're leeching off the whole Rusev Day thing. She's only popular because of her husband. Well, who gives a shit? What difference does it make? You know what I mean? They're husband and wife. People chant Rusev Day. And so they said, well, let's try to get this woman over by, sort of transferring that over to her, and we'll call it Lana Day. And guess what? People have taken to it. So run with it. She hit a pretty sweet kick to the head of Alexa Bliss, and then she screamed, Lana Crush, and then locked in the accolade to a big pop. Probably one of the biggest pops all night when she put that accolade on her. End of the match, Becky Lynch had the ring all to herself. Was climbing the ladder. She got her hands on the briefcase. She just about had it unhooked, but she had a stall, which was kind of lame. And there were a few moments like that in really both the ladder matches. But this was probably the worst moment of the bunch, where it was obvious, like, just pull the frickin' thing down. She's fumbling around with it. It's kind of like, when guys slow down when they're climbing the ladder because they have to wait for somebody to come knock them off and it looks fake and phony. That's kind of what this was. She had to stall and fumble for a little bit to give Alexa Bliss a chance to get back into the ring and tip the ladder over, which is what she did. Becky landed face first on the way down onto a ladder in the corner, and that allowed Alexa Bliss to climb up and retrieve the briefcase to a huge reaction to win the Money in the Bank ladder match. I guess technically that would make her the third winner. I don't know, how would you figure? Because we had the first women's Money in the Bank ladder match last year, and under dubious circumstances, Carmella won, right? Then they did the rematch on TV, and Carmella won that again. So I guess this would make her the second winner, or the third, depending on how you look at it, but she is your Ms. Money in the Bank for 2018, which would come into play a little bit later on. Roman Reigns against Jinder Mahal. Oh joy. Jinder wheeled Sunil Singh to the ring in a wheelchair after Roman had destroyed him on TV last week. We got loud CM Punk chants early here in Chicago, so if there was any wonder about how the Chicago crowd would take to this match, didn't take very long to get your answer. CM Punk chants, this is boring chants, NXT chants of this match sucks. Let me just say this. This match did not suck. The crowd, it was obvious, the crowd made their minds up before this thing even started. They were going to sabotage this match. They tried their hardest to do so. The match was nothing special, but it didn't suck. And this is coming from somebody who is no fan of, Jinder Mahal matches. and is very unenthused. I won't say I hate Roman Reigns, but, I don't have any interest in seeing him on top of the card or champion or anything like that. And actually on this show, he was reduced to effectively mid-card duty. But the idea of Roman Reigns against Jinder Mahal is something that just sounds to me like the cure for insomnia. So this was not a match I was looking forward to going into the show, but for what it was, it was fine. I don't think it sucked. Jinder bled from his cheek. Sunil Singh early on got up out of his wheelchair. The referee's back was turned, and he rose from his wheelchair, shoved Roman Reigns face first into the ring post. He was healed, I guess, by Benny Hinn before the match. When he tried that again later, though, Singh got caught red-handed. He got caught by Roman, he got caught by the ref, and he got Superman punched for his troubles. Reigns won with a spear. You want a good word for it? Pedestrian. This was a pretty pedestrian match, but I have seen worse Jinder Mahal matches, back when he was champion, in fact. I've also seen much better Roman Reigns matches. And so this was not his finest hour, but thankfully it was not very long, and they got it out of the way, and it was not overly offensive. Carmella and Asuka for the Smackdown Women's Championship match was a lot more back and forth than I thought it would be. Carmella got a good deal of offense in here. Asuka regained control when all of a sudden a man, and it was very obvious that it was a man if you looked at the hands, he had man hands. A man got up on the apron dressed in an Asuka costume, mask and all, with a hood. Asuka just stood there and stared at him in just bewilderment, like she was looking at in a mirror. And Carmella tried for a roll-up. Asuka kicked out, kneed her in the face, and instead of finishing her off, like any smart babyface would do, Asuka, following the WWE formula, had to be the dumb babyface. And so even after kneeing her in the face, she stood there, and she turned her attention back to fake Asuka, and just stared. Didn't do anything, didn't even go over to rip the hood off to find out who it was, she just stood there. She just stood there and stared. And so the man pulls back the hood and he pulls the mask off. He reveals James Ellsworth, who got a huge reaction. Carmella then catches Asuka with a kick to the face and pinned her to retain her championship. I like the Ellsworth-Carmella combo. It's cool to see him back. I think it'll make for some entertaining segments. Ellsworth is an interesting one. I mean, he's actually a pretty cool story. I mean, if you know anything about where he was doing the independent thing, and then he gets this shot with WWE. Who could have predicted it would turn into an actual, full-time contract for him? It's a cool story, and he seems like a really nice guy, and I'm happy for the guy. And I liked what they were doing with him and Carmella before. So putting the two of them back together, I think, is fine. I have no issue with that. But man, did Asuka look dumb, just standing there like that and doing nothing. I absolutely detest how special she felt in NXT, and even on Raw. They did a pretty good job, even when she moved to Raw, of keeping her feeling like a big deal, at least going into WrestleMania when she lost for the first time. She felt special in NXT. She felt special on Raw. Comes to SmackDown, and she has just been treated like another person. There is nothing special about Asuka anymore. And it's not just because she lost at WrestleMania to Charlotte. It didn't have to be this way. But now she's just like every other dumb babyface on the roster, and she, you could beat her like a drum, you could do whatever you want. The specialness is gone. And it just pisses me off because it didn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way with these NXT people when they call them up. And it's not Asuka's fault, but it's just the way that they've booked her and handled her on SmackDown since the Superstar shakeup. And I don't think they've done themselves any favors here. Now, they could have just beaten her straight up. They didn't do that. They had Ellsworth as sort of the proxy here, and it was the distraction. And this is exactly how I figured the match would end. I mean, I thought it would be on a roll-up and not a kick. But when I did my predictions, the rumors about Ellsworth have been out there for a few days now. I figured, well, they're going to plug him back in with Carmella, and they're going to beat Asuka because I didn't think the title was changing hands. So it really wasn't all that different from what I had predicted. But that whole just her standing there and staring, it's like those people when the theme music hits. If they're about to win the match and someone's theme music comes on and they stop what they're doing and they look at the aisle and they sort of, they stand there. Oh, come on, come on down. Like, why do they do that? I'm saying, like, in kayfabe, let's put yourselves in that world, right? What sense does that make? That this has happened practically hundreds of times and nobody has really figured out that, hey, maybe I ought to just kind of, stay focused on the match here. Maybe I should just win the match and then I could turn my attention to the person in the aisleway. So I hate when they do stuff like that. And now Asuka is just another face in the crowd. And I think that's a gigantic waste. AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, last man standing for the WWE Championship. Even on a show with no Universal title match, the WWE title cannot headline. Not even second to last, which I think speaks volumes about where that title ranks in the pecking order these days. They had a long match. It was about half an hour. First half or so of which I have to tell you, I did not think was overly exciting. I was kind of just waiting for something to happen. But those last 5, I'd say maybe 6-7 minutes, made up for it. I thought it was an excellent closing minutes of this match. We had a Kinshasa on the announce table at one point where he being Nakamura, put AJ on one of the 3 announce tables at ringside. He cleared off the other 2 and basically ran across those 2 and hit the Kinshasa, which was pretty cool. And Styles recovered at the last possible second. Nakamura brought a table into the ring from underneath the ring. At one point, it ended up in the corner. Nakamura threw Styles into the table. So the table is propped up in the corner. He launches AJ at warp speed into this table. I mean, he threw him into that table so hard, I'm surprised he didn't hit 88 miles an hour and get teleported back to 1955. The table exploded when he hit it. Somehow Styles was barely able to beat the count. AJ did get the calf crusher on later in the match. Nakamura tapped. Of course, there are no submissions in a last man standing match. Styles then savaged him with a steel chair on the outside. Nakamura was begging off, but he suckered AJ into a low blow. And here we go again. This is a perfect example of what I was just talking about. The fact that AJ Styles, who is one of the top stars in the company, a few hours from now, they're probably going to announce him as the cover boy for their 2K19 game. He is the WWE champion. And the fact that AJ Styles now, 2 months later, after this feud began, okay, still has not figured out to wear a cup, an athletic supporter, is reason enough to strip this guy of the title and give it to Shinsuke. How do you not do the spot where Nakamura goes for a low blow, but AJ no-sells it and pulls out the cup? I mean, I thought they were going to do it in the second match. This is what, the 4th or 5th now? I mean, this match here tonight felt like the blow-off. And I hope it is. Because AJ's got to move on to someone else. Whether it's Samoa Joe or whoever it may be. It is time for him to move on. That is it. And especially if this is the blow-off here. How do you not do that spot here in this match? How is that not the payoff to this entire storyline? And Styles won. You should do that spot and it leads to him winning. Is that not common sense? How stupid does AJ Styles look for not having figured this out by now? Yet another example of a dumb babyface. What I call dumb babyface syndrome in WWE. DBS. It's an illness. It is an official diagnosed illness with babyfaces in this company. So anyway, Styles made it back to his feet at the count of 9. Nakamura then hit him with the Kinshasa. Again, Styles recovered at 9. Styles hit a Styles Clash off the ring steps. I thought he was going to do it on the steps. That would have been pretty brutal. But he did it off the ring steps to the floor. Nakamura barely made it up by the count of 9. Then did his, come on pose. And this was actually pretty funny. So, Nakamura looks at him. He just goes, come on. And AJ just kicks him right in the nuts. Right in the nutsack. And then very casually kind of saunters back into the ring. And then Styles, one of the spots of the night, hits this incredible springboard flying forearm from the ring to the floor. You know, what's great about AJ is when he hits that forearm, they get these great slow motion replays, or they get these great still shots of him doing it. He looks like a superhero flying through the air. He could not have pulled this off any better. It looked just picture perfect. Destroyed Nakamura with it on the floor. AJ got up by the count of, I think it was 6 or 7. Nakamura, he was not so lucky. He fails to get up to his feet before the count of 10, and AJ Styles retains the WWE Championship once more. Again, this turned into an excellent match down the stretch, but it was largely due to those last 6 or 8 minutes. Nia Jax and Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's Championship. This match was better than it had any right to be. That seems to also be the consensus from some of you looking at my timeline here before. And you got to remember, this is the first singles match that Ronda Rousey has had in WWE on television. I know she's been at the Performance Center, and she may well have had a run through with Nia. You know, they may have rehearsed this entire match for all I know. But as far as on TV, on pay-per-view, this was Rousey's very first singles match. It's one thing to do a tag team match like she did at WrestleMania. You get all the bells and whistles. Triple H and Stephanie are out there. Kurt Angle is out there. And Ronda knocked it out of the park at WrestleMania, but this is different. You know, now she's in there one-on-one, and she's in there one-on-one with Nia Jax. And all due respect to Nia Jax, she ain't that good. I have not seen a whole lot out of Nia Jax, in singles matches. So I did not know what to expect out of this, and this exceeded my expectations. Nia was knocking her around early on. Really made her out to be a monster. At one point, Nia was, I think she powerbombed her. She powerbombed Ronda Rousey, and Ronda actually stumbled, fell through the ropes out to the floor. So she was selling and selling and selling, and just getting her ass kicked. And Ronda then kept trying to get that armbar on, right? They kept going back to the whole armbar thing. And we already knew she could put the armbar on her because they basically gave it away on TV last week. Not only that, but Nia tapped out on TV to the armbar. During a talking segment in which, after Nia tapped out, they rang the bell. I still don't quite understand why they did that last Monday. I've never seen that before. That would almost be like having a contract signing that sort of breaks down into a brawl, and you lay out your opponent, and then the bell rings. So perhaps the timekeeper was inebriated last week. I don't know. But anyway, the story here was she kept trying to put the armbar on, and finally she was just about ready to wrench back on the arm when Alexa Bliss, the Money in the Bank winner, comes in. She beat on Ronda with the briefcase, knocked her out of the ring, came back inside. She hit Nia a few times with the briefcase. She cashed in. The way they were doing this, I thought she was going to tease a cash in but then take it away. But once the bell rings, it becomes official. And so the bell rang, and Alexa hit a DDT immediately, and then went up top and hit Twisted Bliss and got the pin. And just like that, Alexa Bliss not only wins Money in the Bank, but in the same night she becomes the new Raw Women's Champion. I believe they said this was her 5th championship since being called up to the main roster, so I assume that includes the Smackdown titles that she won. So she hasn't really been on the main roster, if you think about it, for that long. It's been, a year and a half maybe? 2 years? Probably not even that long. So she's done pretty well for herself. And people reacted great to the title change. Alexa gets her revenge on Nia for that horrible anti-bullying PSA promo that she cut at Backlash that I will always keep reminding people of because it was so terrible. And so now we'll see where they go from here, because you got Nia Jax, who obviously is going to be owed a rematch, and she's going to want revenge on Alexa. But you also have Ronda Rousey, who was screwed out of the Women's Championship, and I thought she would be, but I really did think it was going to be Natty, because they just, almost to the point of it being too obvious, have been playing up the whole best friend angle with her and Ronda, and as I said before, when the announcers talk a lot about how so-and-so is, their best friend, that's usually a red flag that something bad's about to happen. So I thought, my prediction going in was that Natty was going to win Money in the Bank, and it would be revealed that this knee injury she's been nursing on TV for a few weeks was a fake, And she was effectively going to screw her friend out of the championship, and they didn't do that. They went with Alexa as the one to screw her instead. Maybe that sets up a three-way for SummerSlam. Maybe they're going to do a triple threat match in Brooklyn. We'll have to wait and see. And finally here, we had the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, Rusev, The Miz, and Kofi Kingston. This was very good. Of the two Money in the Bank matches, I actually think I prefer the women's. But this was very good. And when I did the predictions for the show, I said I thought it would be Kofi getting the nod for New Day, and it was. It's a ladder match, right? So it just seems like Kofi's playground. Although I will say, he didn't do as much as I thought he would here. There really was nothing overly impressive from him here in this match. But anyway, Strowman at the beginning is just running wild. I mean, he is dominating, and so they all decide to gang up on him, and they sort of, chase him down the aisle, right underneath where the Titantron is. They bury him under a pile of ladders, and they left him for dead. So that took him out of the game for a while, until Finn Balor, a few minutes later, decides to come back over. He's going to retrieve one of the ladders from the pile to take back to the ring with him. But we see Strowman in the background rise from the dead, and he started killing people all over again. Samoa Joe flew through the ropes and landed this great flying forearm to Strowman. They got a great shot at this thing. If Samoa was ever in a position where, I'm talking about the nation of Samoa, ever decided to launch a missile strike, okay, here on the U.S., I imagine that the incoming missile would look a lot like Samoa Joe did here. He just launched himself out of the ring. So again, they decide, well, let's gang up on the big guy, and that was their strategy, and they all ganged up on Braun Strowman again, and this time it was Joe, Rusev, and Kevin Owens. So the three heels decide to gang up on Strowman, and Joe put him in the choke, and they laid him out on a table in the aisleway. And Joe tells Kevin Owens, get your ass up there. And he's referring to this giant ladder that has been set up. And this thing had to be a legit 15 to 20 feet. This could have been a legit 20-foot ladder, maybe even a little more. Although I thought at one point they claimed 50, or it felt like they were about to say something ridiculous like 50 feet, just like the ring steps are 1,000 pounds, Michael Cole. But this was a tall ladder. And so Joe and Rusev, they've got Strowman laid out across the table, but he recovers. He beats them off. Actually, let me rephrase that. He knocks them aside. There you go. I apologize for that visual, by the way. So now he looks up and he sees Kevin Owens on top of the ladder, and poor Kevin Owens is stuck. He's got nowhere to go. He starts to climb down. Strowman starts to climb up, and he reaches around, and he actually brings Owens sort of back up the ladder with him. And now he's face to face with him. He's yelling at him, I told you you're going to get these hands. And he just throws Kevin Owens off the ladder. Owens crashes down through a table below, just falls to his death, never to be seen or heard from again for the rest of the match. It was a cool bump. It kind of reminded me when they got the wide shot of one of those crazy-ass bumps Shane McMahon used to take, although not quite as crazy. Shane has fallen from much higher altitudes than Owens did here. But it did take him out of the match. I mean, it was the kind of spot where you could not realistically have Kevin Owens come back after that. And he didn't. But one of the other cool parts of the match, Rusev had a couple of minutes to shine as well in the middle here. And he was in the ring, and he put a double accolade at one point on Kofi Kingston and Bobby Roode. And The Miz came over. He tried to go for the skull-crushing finale. Rusev wouldn't have any of it. And instead, he added Miz to the pile. And so we had what I believe was our first ever triple accolade. But Samoa Joe very quickly broke it up, put Rusev in the coquina clutch. Finn Balor, a few minutes after that, hit a coup de grace off a ladder that was set up outside the ring. So I don't remember who set it up, but there was a ladder. And Balor climbed up to the second to last top rung and into the ring, dove off, hit the double foot stomp. Lucky he didn't break both his ankles doing that. It's probably only a matter of time. But that was a cool spot. So it all came down to Finn Balor and Braun Strowman. Each of them were climbing the ladder. Kofi Kingston jumps on Strowman's back, but Strowman kept climbing. even with Kofi on his back. He was wearing Kofi like a JanSport. Eventually, he knocked Balor down. He tossed Kingston all the way down to the mat before retrieving the briefcase. And Braun Strowman is your men's Money in the Bank winner for 2018. That surprised me. I was off. I was wrong on both Money in the Bank picks, but this is the one that surprised me the most. Now, on the one hand, it's not at all shocking that they would put over one of the biggest baby faces in the company. The same guy who's been booked as a dominant monster now for weeks on television. But to me, it was almost too obvious going into the show that they wanted me to think that he was going to win Money in the Bank. Who could stop this man, right? Every week on TV, he's demolishing people. He's beating people left and right. He's the most dominant thing in the company. Who could stop this man? But if ever there was a match that it was okay for Braun Strowman not to win and he, wouldn't lose any momentum, it's a multi-man ladder match, right? Because he doesn't have to be pinned. He doesn't have to tap out. You could just bury him like they did under a pile of ladders, or, he could be distracted by somebody, whatever the case may be. But he won. I don't think he had to win this, but I'm also not going to sit here and complain about the fact that he did, because he is one of the two, at least on Raw. I mean, if you want to, kind of stretch it out to Raw and SmackDown, I think AJ is also very popular. But certainly on the Raw brand, it's him and Seth Rollins. They are the two top baby faces on that show. They are the two top choices, in my opinion, and the only ones right now on that brand to be the next Universal Champion. I don't think it should be Roman Reigns. I certainly don't think it should be Roman Reigns beating Brock Lesnar, because I think we've already kind of been down that road one time too many. But, again, they wanted to put Strowman over here, and so I don't have an issue with it. I'm just more surprised than anything else. And also, it makes a clean sweep for the Raw brand in both Money in the Bank matches. So it's bad enough that SmackDown's main championship can't even get top billing. They can't even get a Money in the Bank winner here. So now the so-called monster in the bank, I guess they're going to call him, has a shiny new lunchbox with a contract inside. Here's the thing with Strowman. I don't think he needs to be sneak attacking anybody to win that championship. I don't know that it would really fit the character for him to do one of those surprise, sneaky cash-ins. But as much as I want him to come out on TV and call out Brock Lesnar for SummerSlam, call his shot, the way that RVD did with John Cena back in 2006, I gotta say, there is something perversely appealing about the idea of doing Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the Universal title at SummerSlam, which is the current rumor as far as what the main event of SummerSlam is going to be. There is something perversely appealing to me about doing that match, having the Brooklyn crowd inevitably shit all over it, which they will, have Roman Reigns win, have him finally win the big one from Brock Lesnar, only for Braun Strowman to then come out, cash in Money in the Bank, and win the championship to send the crowd home happy. There is something appealing to that scenario. You just got to make sure, I think if you do that, though, you got to make sure that Braun gets a match earlier in the night at SummerSlam, because if he doesn't wrestle at all, you leave him off, one of your biggest shows of the year. I think it would be a dead giveaway. I mean, most people are going to know anyway that he's probably coming out to cash in, but you don't want to make it too obvious that he's going to be doing that. But that Money in the Bank briefcase is Roman Reigns' greatest rival in WWE. His greatest rival is not Seth Rollins, it's not Braun Strowman, it's not Brock Lesnar, it's not the fans. His greatest rival is that Money in the Bank briefcase. Seth Rollins cashed in, right? WrestleMania 31, screwed Reigns out of the championship. Sheamus at Survivor Series 2015. After Reigns had just won the vacant title, remember Seth got hurt, there was a tournament, he beat Dean Ambrose in the finals, won the championship, and what happened? Sheamus comes out, cashes in Money in the Bank, wins the championship. That briefcase is like his kryptonite. And maybe, just maybe, if Braun Strowman does cash in to take it away from him, it might just be enough to send Roman Reigns over the edge, which is something I think he very much needs right now. So anyway, that's your Money in the Bank review. I did put a poll up on Twitter before we end things here. Let me go check and see where we are at. We had a lot of feedback. Last I checked, I think we had over, was it 2,000 votes? I think we may already have over 2,000 votes. And the show has not been off the air for that long. So, yeah, here we are. 2,400 votes, 69% thumbs up, 31% thumbs down, which sounds about right. Sounds pretty much in line with what you guys were saying online. So it's like I said, right? Overall, thumbs up show, but I called it an unenthusiastic thumbs up. I just can't get too overly excited about anything I saw on this show, but I also can't give it a thumbs down. And so that's my Money in the Bank thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of the show? Am I wrong? Am I right? What are you looking forward to? What would you like to see heading into SummerSlam as far as Strowman and all the other programs they seem to be setting up for the big show? I want to say thank you, as always, to SalRex, the very talented @SalRex on Twitter, for the artwork here in this video. You can follow me on Twitter @Solomonster is my handle. Please give this video a thumbs up if you would be so kind to do so. That would be very helpful. And also, don't forget, you can listen to full episodes of the Solomonster Sounds Off on Spotify. We are on Spotify, as well as iTunes, and a ton of other platforms, Podbean, TuneIn. You can pretty much find the show anywhere and everywhere podcasts are streaming. Check it out each and every Sunday. I think you might like it. Until next time, I am the Solomonster. Thank you so much for tuning into this review. Be well, stay safe. I will see you back here on the YouTube channel for more Sound Off Extra content very soon. Until then, take care, guys.